Great, so today, we've got a presentation, so we've got a co-swap grant, here in La Plata County. And one of our partners there, LPEA, secured some funding to do some work up in Los Ranchitios. And that has been helped by Brent, our wonderful WAP ambassador for that neighborhood. So together they've completed a really awesome project. I just drove up and looked at it today. It's looking really, really great. And they're gonna talk to us a little bit about that process, what it was like to do that mitigation, how they selected that area. And yeah, if you guys want to come up, that would be awesome. Thank you so much, Jerry and Brent.
Then we come up there.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody, for having me. My name is Jerry Sutherlin. I'm with Plata Electric. I oversee operations there. I've been there for 25 years. I've worked a lot in Los Ranchitios. I've spent many snowy nights, rainy nights in Los Ranchitios. So, yeah, so this was a very exciting project for us, and give you an overview of what our goal and mission is. Overall mission, don't start a fire. I know you're all aware of wildfires and power lines. They're almost in the news daily, and Plata Electric, we have Plata Electric, our biggest fear is causing a wildfire. Just last year, in 2024, losses, claims, and settlements due to wildfires and utilities was over $285 billion. If something were to happen where we were liable, it would put us into bankruptcy, which ultimately hits the membership. We're cooperative. So we do not want that to happen. Oh, sorry. I'm not.
Yeah.
So there's our mission. Protect the membership, surrounding areas, reduce the risk of wildfires by minimizing the possibility of vegetation, contacting power lines by way of right-of-way reclamation. Next slide. So why Los Ranchitios? Back in 2022, I got with the county and we looked at a different mitigation project. And the reason we were looking at it, if we ever had to use this area for an emergency exit point for a certain subdivision, we needed it to be free of burning debris falling on the road, had to remain open. That one fell through. But it got me thinking, what other places are there limited emergency ingress and egress points? So Los Ranchitios, Forest Lakes, Aspen Trails, those ones were the first to pop into my mind. Overgrown, high fire risk. All of those subdivisions fit into that bucket. But then money always comes into play. What fit into our budget? We maintain over 2,000 miles of overhead transmission and distribution lines. We spend over $2 million a year just trimming those trees to try to keep them clear of our lines. We got an extra $250,000 specifically for fire mitigation. And so I wanted to put that money towards a project like this. Los Ranchitios led all other subdivisions in tree caused outages the last big winter we had. And it's not that big of a subdivision, so for it to lead in tree caused outages, I mean, that was number one. It bumped them right up the list. Pretty close, pretty close. You guys are all the same, so run off the same circuit, so anything you experience, there's a good chance they're experiencing. We want to protect our electrical infrastructure. Anytime that we lose a piece of equipment, you know, the membership falls on the membership. And this grant came up, so it could supplement the project. So it's like score free money, you know. And then the ambassador, Brent Leisure, getting him involved in this project has been the key to getting it seen through to completion, which should happen within the next couple of weeks. Next slide. Strategy. We have to have buy-in. Nobody wants their trees cut down, right? We all love our trees, so we had to get buy-in from the community. That's where Brent was huge. We were very strategic about what trees. We tried to work with the members. We had multiple meetings beforehand, before we even put boots on the ground, on how this was gonna be played out from start to finish. There were some that didn't want their trees cut down at all. But the realization was, if we have a wildfire in the subdivision, we won't have any trees at all. Planning which trees. We have a 20-foot easement through all of our power lines in that subdivision. So that was our goal, was to clear that 20-foot from floor to ceiling and clear everything within that. So there was less risk of that vegetation contacting our power lines. Now there are, as you can see in this picture, some of those trees are, nearing 100 foot tall. And if they were to fall, they could reach our power lines. But we're trying to keep as much as we can, still reduce risk. The timing of it, well, there's timing with the grant always. And then we also had to use our in-house contractors that do our normal tree trimming for this project. And so we had to make sure that they were able to tackle this along with their scheduled trimming to maintain the rest of our lines on our system. Implementation, they've been working on it for almost 2 months now, and they are getting a lot of work done. We spoke with the subdivision on what's going to happen with the chips, what's going to happen with the branches, what's going to happen with the lumber. Hopefully you guys are utilizing as much as you want of the trees for firewood and what else. But that's a lot of wood. I think there were 96 total trees that were to be removed completely. And then serving as an example, we want to use Los Ranchitios as an example for other subdivisions, for other entities, for counties, and other co-ops in the state surrounding areas to say, yes, this is doable and we can still make it look good. So we did some pre-flight drone photos, and the black and white those are all of our overhead lines. And yes, there are overhead power lines running through these trees. So you can see how overgrown it was. And it's a huge risk, huge fire risk. So what we're gonna do is, once the project is complete, we're bringing back that drone company, and they're gonna refly. And then we'll have a layover with a slider so you can see a little before and after. And it's gonna look a lot different than this picture right here. As you can see, I mean, pretty much all of it is overgrown where you can barely see the power lines. So, next slide. So the overall benefits, first and foremost, reduce fire risk. It doesn't take much in these dry conditions for vegetation to catch fire. Nice wet years, there's more moisture in the trees, which makes them more conductive, which makes them trip our protective devices on our lines. When they're dry and they don't have as much moisture, our protective devices don't see that fault current that they need to open to de-energize those lines. So we want to clear the lines of any vegetation. Improve reliability. Hopefully you guys don't have near as many tree outages. Hopefully my guys aren't out there in the middle of winter, trying to get your lights back. Improve safety. It's going to create great, hopefully this never happens. They create great fire lines, great fire breaks. If fire were to ever be in that subdivision. It gives extra safety, added safety to the first responders and the fire personnel fighting fires. It's going to hopefully help with ingress and egress. And then outreach. We're hoping to use it as an example, as I said earlier. And Brent, he's gonna speak now. He was the ambassador. He was the face of this project for the subdivision, continues to be. And from his videos and photos that he's taken, he could be a reporter. It's incredible.
You know, Jerry, when I look at these overall benefits and it says improved reliability, one might also be improved liability.
Very true.
Very true. It was more of a business thing, consideration for you, but I came up here from Texas, about 5 years ago. And in my past, professional work, I had some, a lot of involvement with our managing wildfire risk, mostly in public lands. But I'll say that, I personally was affected by a fire many years ago in 2010, and there was a fire outside of Austin in Central Texas where I lived, and it was started by a power line. A tree coming down on a power line, actually 3 different ignition points, and 1,700 homes were burned down. At the time, it was the largest fire in U.S. history in terms of home losses. That's been surpassed now with some of the California fires. But it's certainly a big risk, and I know firsthand what it can be like. There is a misconception. Many of our neighbors thought that, were resisting and thought it was an overreach to take down as many trees within that 20-foot easement. And didn't think it was necessary. Wanted to do some tree trimming, some limb cutting. And I can tell you, we've had at least 2 power outages in Los Ranchitios this past year, not from limbs, but from trees coming down. And it is most definitely a risk, a wildfire risk, particularly in the Western United States, and you all know that. One of the things that we try to do anytime that we have a new initiative is try to anticipate where the resistance is going to be and mitigate or develop some strategies to mitigate that resistance to the extent that you can. And so that's what we wanted to do with this project. And Jay, from the outset, was very forthcoming and open about, okay, here's what our scope of work is going to be, is what it's going to look like. And it's going to be impactful. You're going to see it. And they had some photographs from previous projects where some line maintenance was taking place. And essentially all vegetation within that 20-foot from top to bottom is coming out. And so we knew that there was going to be pockets of resistance. You know where they are in your communities. People that we all love our trees, and particularly if you have a signature tree, you want to say, something that's very unique and extraordinary. But if it's in that easement, it's coming out. And we're not talking about little trees, big condos like this. And so we've taken advantage of some of the firewood opportunities that existed with this, but frankly, some of those trees are just too large to handle for, without heavy equipment and such. But Woodchuck has been the contractor that LPEA has hired for this project. They've done an outstanding job. That field team has been, I'm talking to them almost every day, and they're very responsive, as been LPEA. But early on, we wanted to do a couple of things, and one is utilize the wood by the members of our HOA if they wanted it. And so we tried to take a survey and understand. So I want 6 logs, I want 10 logs, I want only 3 logs, or whatever it happened to be, and manage that as best we could. But also be very clear about expectations, so nobody gets surprised. They know from the very beginning what it's going to look like. And we had some visuals that people could look at, that had some projects that we worked on in other areas. That was helpful. We also, as the project it got delayed a bit through the winter, and so we waited until spring to start it up again. But we held a Zoom meeting, and it was with Jerry, and then also, a representative from Woodchuck Tree Service was there. And it was a Zoom call with everybody in our HOA to be able to answer questions. Tried to set up very early on an opportunity for them to send questions to me. I'll go get the answers, and then we'll share them universally across the community. And that was helpful. The Zoom call was helpful. The engagement from the outset and talking and reporting back periodically to everybody with photographs and where we are. This is where the schedule is, and this is what's happening with some of the things on the ground. This is the direction of they're headed next. And so there's just no surprises. And so I think that helped to mitigate some of the resistance that we anticipated and did see early on. But it's not over yet. So I'm not, we're not celebrating quite yet, but we're very close. And like I said, probably a week or two away. And I would just suggest that you in your positions are uniquely positioned to help relieve some of the resistance or pushback that you might get on a project like this. You know, oftentimes it's good to have a known face, somebody that the community knows, hopefully trusts, and you're shooting straight with them. Your interests are their interest, and you share them with them, and so you can help bridge the gap as a liaison with the contractors and the workers in this. And in my case, you know, I was, if you can share some statistics or research or articles and information that's going on, particularly out west, and what kind of threat this does represent to our communities. I mean, you think about the causes of wildfires, particularly out west. Down power lines is certainly one. Lightning strikes is a big one. These are things that we're experiencing and seeing around us every day. This is a great project. And then at the end of the day, yeah, we're missing a whole lot of big trees, but frankly, when they're gone, you don't miss them quite as much. You know, it's the pain of cutting and removing that in that image it sticks with people, but there's a lot of membership out there. So anyway, I just wanted to offer that from my perspective, what I think we can do as ambassadors when they move into the community, and be a trusted source of information and representing interests on both sides. So, yeah.
So does LPEA have a legal right, since it's on an easement, presumably, to cut the trees down if the homeowner says no?
We do.
Have you ever had to, in these circumstances, say?
We do our best to, you know, have a great relationship with our members. But that has gotten us in trouble. And because we were too gracious, many places are overgrown like that. And so I mean, we do have that right to maintain our lines and remove any vegetation within that easement. Now, most of them are 20 foot on our distribution lines. Some are a little bigger. And then on our transmission lines, they're anywhere from 50 to 100 feet. We try to work with members. And that's where Brent has come in and really just smoothed that entire process up. He made my life super easy, because, you know, most of the time I'm fielding questions and angry phone calls, and I didn't have any of that. Not once through this entire process. He took the brunt of it, so.
Too bad, but we had an opportunity in some cases to even negotiate on a grant. And okay, well, here's a questionable tree. It may be right at that 10 foot from center line, but clearly it's weighted away from the line. And if it wants to fall, it's probably going to go the other way. And we might be able to get by with some tree and some limb cutting as opposed to removing the tree. And they listen to owners and you know, their desires. As a matter of fact, even today, and we're doing some of this now, and Dan has been particularly helpful with us with Woodchuck. But if there is a dead tree, for example, that's outside of that easement and yet threatening that line and clearly is a threat to that line. We're working with Woodchuck to take a few of those trees out as well, provided that we have land permission.
Yeah,
So how does the cost of this project compare with just burying the utility lines through the community?
it's night and day. So the overall cost of this project is probably gonna be close to $250,000. If we were to bury these lines, it would be upwards of probably 10 to 15 million.
So this was a grant, you got a $250,000 grant.
We got a $50,000 match. Yep, and so, through CoSwap, and whether we were awarded that grant or not, my plan was to still go through with this project on LPEA's dime. It was such a overgrown area, the number of outages that we had experienced, and with the limited ingress egress, it's like, we've got to start taking care of these, so. And it fit into this. I'd love to do the same thing with Forest Lakes. Forest Lakes is huge. That project would take like 10 to 15 years to complete, with the crews that we have. So, that's gotta be a much bigger plan. But, Aspen Trails neighboring, it's
Yes,
on the
please.
list. It's on the list for next year, to do the same thing. And then we also have multiple areas that are on a list, and we are rating them, with those, higher risk, money, size, and buy-in. It's gonna be huge.
Can I touch on the funding? Just, there was a question online about that too, so. The Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Plan, CoSwap, is a state funding from Department of Natural Resources. It came out of the state legislature, I think back in 2022, it was originally done. And just a background on this, you guys can look it up, but there's focal areas around the state. So they picked 7 counties, La Plata County was one of them. And then the 3 Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative areas, which Southwest Colorado is one as well. So in this area, we've had 2 rounds of that funding. There's CoSwap 1 and 2 in both Montezuma and La Plata County. And so these are all collaborate. I would say we have all these partners that kind of collaborate together to come up with the proposals for these. And so this was one of those projects. We have some funding for Forest Lakes. CoSwap 1 pretty much is what we're doing. Cost share, I guess now the geography is all of Durango Fire District. So there's some other focuses in Montezuma County. We also have some grants over there. So these are all kind of collaborative, larger ones. And these are, I think under this one, we have 5 or 6 different projects under that CoSwap too. And so this is one 50,000 with 200,000 from LPA, correct?
I'll bet you, if you go back in 5 years and look at the statistics, you're gonna see incredible change in the number of power outages in Los Ranchitios because of this thing. A lot of that was winter, limbs coming down and heavy weighted snow, but some of it were trees coming down. So
Do you ever experience a little more blowdown after some of this thinning takes place for like a year or so? We're noticing pretty strong winds
Right.
these days. Does that seem to be a pretty? Okay.
Nope, when we see blowdown, it's kind of ironic, but it's after wet years. And that's when we see the most blowdown. But, wet years, we're not nearly as concerned, of course, but, yeah, uprooting is definitely an issue.
What are you doing with all the wood chips, you guys?
which is
Little bananas.
were broadcast.
Thanks.
But they were good about if a landowner wanted their chips piled so they could use them for something, then they did that. Otherwise, it was broadcast. And in some cases, hauled out. Because it's just too much to do with.
Did you let homeowners know not around the house with the wood chips?
Oh, yeah. That's what we're talking about. Ingress and egress. I thought, well, what our priorities and messages have been to our community this past year has been very much in line with what you're doing. When we tried to provide some guidance and, in priority for mitigation work on people's property. Start zone one, start moving out and harden your home and take care of that initial zone, but take care of that driveway coming into your property. And at the community as a whole, take care of, 15 feet off of our roads to make sure that we have, reasonably good ingress and egress. So that's been, a priority of ours over this last year, in addition to the home market stuff. And so it dovetailed with what they were trying to do and accomplish with this project.
So has Woodchuck been hauling off the logs that you guys don't want, or, what's taking place?
They have, and there's a lot of logs still on, fall off. And it's been picked over now by people that wanted to use some, they were grabbing the smaller stuff, 8 to 10, 12, 14 inches in diameter, but the 24-inch diameter trees are more difficult. So I don't know what their source is.
I don't either. It's just in their contract that it would be their responsibility for anything that the members do.
They are a great company, so I
They really are.
speak volumes with.
I have been so impressed.
They do, and
So
their personnel are just outstanding.
Yes,
Yeah,
great.
so I would recommend them, not this year probably, but in the future for any of you guys that you could have worked on in your subdivisions. They do good work.
Anything else?
Yeah, Brent, obviously the outreach component of this was huge to the success. I'm just curious, any like lessons learned or snafus that you got into that you figured out how to negotiate with people or anything like that, that you can think of that you can share with other folks who might be interested in something like this, or?
Hopefully, you know your members pretty well, and you know where the pockets of resistance might be. And maybe that someone's not entirely bought into what you're trying to accomplish from a mitigation perspective. And maybe offer a little special time with them to help lead them along and coach them through it, because more than likely you're a trusted face, right? You're a fellow member of the community, and so I think that was helpful. Spent a lot of time one-on-one talking to people, meeting with them about their trees. And they did come in advance and mark most of the trees, so it was not a total surprise. They mark all the little stuff, but the bigger trees were marked. And if there was any chance for a negotiated change in that plan, I would check with Jerry or Woodchuck first before you just don't want to overpromise and underdeliver in a situation like that. So manage expectations a little bit. It went pretty well for us, but I'm sure there's resistance in the community, but for the most part, there was considerable buy-in. And I also think this, when there's generally buy-in, you've got a critical mass and momentum move in that direction. So anybody that's kind of an outlier for that, not that they get silenced, but it's going and it's happening. And we never really had to use the threat of a heavy stick that you were describing a minute ago, that, whether you want it or not, we're still going to do it. And so, yeah.
Brent, I think you would agree that some of the other mitigation work that we've done the last 4 years has kind of eased the anxiety that some people have about mitigation in general.
Yeah.
I mean, we do our annual chipper event. We've done some other mitigation, and even with people that were somewhat opposed to some of the things that we were doing, once they saw it, once it was completed, it was like, it's no big deal. Now, this, is an incredible project, okay, and it's obviously very visible. But, as we've shared with people, as time goes by, you won't remember that tree, okay, that you were so upset about. And again, I think it's in part because of the mitigation work that we've been doing the last 4 years that kind of set the stage for most people to trust that, we're doing the right thing for the community. So I think that helped a lot. I think if you just go into a project like this without having done much, if anything, prior to that, it might be a harder sell.
How big is the subdivision and how many members?
It's really not that large comparatively, you know, with what else is happening. We've got about 55 properties. Most of them are 3 to 6 acres in size. The majority are 3 acres. And very little common HOA property. So anything that we're gonna achieve significantly in the way of wildfire mitigation, fuel management is gonna be done on our property. We just don't have that much common land to do something. And what we have, you know, we've been successful in managing the fuels on those small stretches, skinny stretches of land. But we're going to accomplish anything in Los Ranchitios, it's going to be through the will of the members, because it's going to be on their property. And you know, we're not where we want to be, but we're heading in that direction.
I have one more question
Yeah.
for Jerry. Maybe this is an easy question to answer, but I would assume now that all those trees are gone, retreatment plan is a little bit more straightforward. Is that kind of already worked into the future?
Absolutely. I mean, as you know, condos take forever to grow. And so it's gonna be super simple to maintain Los Ranchitios now. In the past, it was, I don't even know last time that we had tree trimmers in there to actually trim those trees to the extent that we need. And so it's really gonna help out with our Los Ranchitios. Yeah, we're going to go there this year. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know, frankly, those that are educated and you understand what the risks are and what are the causes of fires and the risk, we want you to do good maintenance on it from here on out. Let's keep it knocked down.
By the way, to watch woodchuck do their work, it's worth the price of admission. When those guys are up there on 100-foot ponderosa, they're topping it off with a chainsaw hanging on their hip. You can really appreciate what they do. I mean, it was fascinating. You know, when the project first started, I mean, I think I posed this question to you, Jerry. I anticipated that we were gonna have a lot of power because I thought they're gonna have to take down lines. I mean, these trees were, you know, along the lines. And we had one day where we had to, what was it, 2 hours, Brent? 3 hours?
Not long.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, not long.
Yeah, which was announced, which was pre-planned. But that was it.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
really good.
It was incredible. I anticipated that we were gonna have intermittent power shutdowns or outages or whatever, and it just didn't happen. It was unbelievable.
Good, perfect. Anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brent, if you want to share on the Wildfire Advisory Board, just for.
Sure. Yeah, can I
Yeah.
got some dates here. Yeah. Kathy asked that if we had any time at the end, I might just give a brief update on what's happening with the Plata County Wildfire Advisory Board. And I have an opportunity to serve on that board for the last year, and so I'll be doing that again for another 3 years. And you might recall a couple of meetings ago, Shauna Lagarza came and talked about emergency management preparedness and just enhance community awareness on things that we should do, and go through a mock evacuation of several communities in the county every year. And so she is the liaison with this advisory board that I'm on with the county, and Shauna is our director of emergency management for Plata County. And then we've had Allison, previous liaison with it, speak to this group. But what's going on primarily on our radar right now, and what's happening, consuming a lot of our time, is the adoption of the State Wildfire Advisory Code. And those, you've seen some information. Actually, I think Corolla Hanks came and
She came
spoke.
in January.
Yeah, and Corolla, we're fortunate, you know, she's retired fire marshal here in Rango, but she was named by the governor's office to head up and chair this statewide advisory, not advisory, Wildfire Resiliency Code Board. And so what they've done over the last 2 years is develop a pretty thorough and very detailed resiliency code, which is intended to drive construction, residential and commercial construction to be more resilient to wildfire. And that code was adopted after a very public process and a lot of public meetings and all, and that's taken place over the last several months. Was adopted last month, and the counties now have the responsibility to implement that code. It's one of those unfunded mandates that come from the state and from some higher authority, and it's very concerning to many communities because they don't necessarily have the resources to implement it. And Plata County is kind of in that position. There's an opportunity to maybe do that with some shared responsibility of the county's community development office and the building code department and code enforcement and permitting and things like that. Essentially, what this is going to do is make all new construction more resilient to fire. And so there's going to be fire ratings on siding, roofing, and vents and things like that. But there's also a site management component to this. And so, you know, it's going to be a huge responsibility for building code folks here in Plata County to make sure that these codes are implemented in such a way that they're successfully done. It's going to add cost to construction for sure, a little bit, and I think that's unavoidable. But they tried to build a board or put a board together that was well represented with you know, fire professionals and then also construction experts and knowledgeable folks in design, architecture, and insurance companies and things like that. All of this obviously is going to help address this insurance crisis that we're facing, but it's just one of many things that are going to happen in order for us to successfully move forward and still be insurable and safe. So the timeline is the county and our advisory board's been working with the county and making some suggestions and recommendations to them as far as putting together a multidisciplinary team to put together an implementation plan, maybe even have a facilitator for this, because you got multiple organizations that have an interest in it, all of our fire protection districts, the 4 of them here in the county, plus the county itself, and then some nonprofit partners. And you know, there's just a number of people that have an interest in it that might actually form an agreement to share some of the responsibilities in the implementation of the plan. For example, maybe if you're, and this might not is going to apply to even new houses, not just new houses, but older homes that you're adding on 500 square feet or more, or perhaps you're replacing a significant exterior component, a roof, siding, you replace 25% or more, well, then the code would apply to you as well. Or you're building a new fence and it's going to attach to the house. There are requirements and standards that apply to that. So there's many projects that will require permits that currently don't require permits, building permits. And so there's a huge public education component to this as well. So that's kind of where we are. We're meeting again later this week to kind of finalize our recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on a timeline and maybe putting together the things in place to make sure that we successfully implement the code here in Plata County. It's not going to be an easy thing.
Is there a time frame that the county has to adopt it by?
Yeah, so we need to adopt the code by they did modify the
I think
dates.
it's 9 months.
March.
We have,
March, yeah.
So now it's been 3 months.
we don't want to adopt it too early, and there's a reason for that. Because what happens is, once the county adopts the code, and when they say adopt the code, they either adopt the state's code that's been applied, been passed, or something stronger, but nothing less. And so it could be more restrictive, but it can't be less. And so when that adoption takes place, it triggers a 90-day implementation, enforcement period. So you got 90 days after that to have all your inner workings and processes and permitting and everything in place, so you're up and running and compliant in 3 months. And so that's kind of the timeline we're backing into. So it's the agency having jurisdiction June 1 of 2026. It was going to be January of 2026. So we've been able to pick up.
That's for implementation, right? So it has to be adopted end of March and then implement.
That's right.
So a year, pretty much a year out to.
Yes, sir.
Brent, would it be possible, I've been hearing about this in various ways over the last couple of months, and I'm just really curious about it. Is there some good material maybe that you could pass on to Ashley or some of the other folks and get that sent out to all of us?
Sure.
There's the
Absolutely.
code, yeah, and we,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we can, and if you have other ones, but we can link, yeah, when we link all this on the website, we can link to the final adopted. Is that what they're calling it? Adopted?
Yes.
The rules, I guess is what they have on here. So we can link to that so that everyone can see that language.
Okay, and then a follow-up question. We've got a big push in our neighborhood, the ranch. We've got 104 houses to really implement firewalls throughout the whole ranch, and we're doing a lot of work. And so I've begun mentioning this, especially to our board of directors for the RPOA. And the question I don't understand, you mentioned, Brent, that there are some cases where existing houses will have to, will be affected by this.
Yeah.
Is it just where there are, you said 500 feet or more added, or?
Yeah, there's several things that would trigger an existing home or structure in a project that you may be pursuing that would be subject to this code. But one thing I failed to mention, and it goes along with the code. They've developed a map. And essentially what it is a wildfire intensity prediction.
Mhm.
And so based on all those factors that, slope and weather and, or topography, that contribute to fire intensity. This map has been established for the state. And it's similar to the fire risk maps that you'll see coming out of Colorado State, but it's not a fire risk map. It's really a fire intensity image. And so you're gonna see red, yellow, gold areas, and then areas that don't have any color on this statewide map. And if you're in one of these colored areas, well, then the code applies to you. You're in the urban interface where the code is applied. And so the standards for construction vary depending on where you are in the map.
Mhm.
Now, you're gonna see some of the things as we all do, like, wait a minute, I've mitigated my property, and why am I still in this red zone and the highest intensity of fire when I know that that's not the case? There's gonna be some ground truthing of the map opportunity that exists with the county. But for the most part, fire's gonna stop at the fence line, and even if you mitigated well, you might save your home, who knows, but you're being evaluated as a community in a much larger area than, the small tract that you might be living. So So that's the first step, and Ashley can provide the link to the state's Wildfire Resiliency Code Board. And that's where you're gonna see the adopted version of this code and the map. And so you can see this map, plug in your address, pull it up and see where you land. For the most part, cities are not exempt because, sometimes the fringe of cities and Durango in particular, you're at risk as well. So, it's not limited to just the, what we would think is far away from, COVID area.
Are there specifics available in terms of, let's say you're gonna put a new roof on your house, you wanna comply with the code, is there information about what you need to do, what
Yes.
you need?
So all those materials, they're gonna have fire ratings and so, yeah, it defines very specifically what kind of roof you can have and what you can't. It's gotta meet that standard. And they tried, for example, log homes are still gonna be, it's still possible to have a log home, but the size of the log does have some added risk. Smaller logs, for example, had an added risk for ignition. And so all of that is clearly defined in the code. And it's gonna be a surprise to a lot of people because they haven't been paying attention and seeing what's coming. It's a game changer. There's a few states that already have a fire resiliency.
Even windows, right, Brent? I mean, windows are gonna have.
Yeah, anything that's on the outside of your structure is going to be spoken to in this code, including vents, like 1/8 or smaller mesh that stop embers from getting under a deck or a porch or up to a soffit vent or something like that. And I can't speak to all the details of the code itself, but I'm just updating where we are with the code and what we're gonna end up having to do in the county to implement it.
It would be really wonderful to have a just plain wordage available for the building materials that will be acceptable, like at Home Depot. This product meets this code. But if you know what, those, and all that.
No, that's a great
It
point,
happens
Judy.
manual.
Yeah,
Because the International Building Code, this means nothing to 90% of the
Right.
population that may need to go in and buy materials for projects.
that's a really good point. That's why it's so important that everybody is paying attention to this, that contractors and manufacturers of these products, because I think what you're gonna see is some of the products that don't conform to the code, there's no sense in carrying them here, but there will still be some need, but I think you're gonna see some evolution of what is readily available to us here. And it's gonna be those things that are more compliant with the code. But we'll see what happens.
Are we seeing anything from the county about slowing down on issuing new permits for construction and stuff because of this impending code coming?
I've never heard that. As a matter of fact, I suspect
Because you hate to get caught
The
right
need
in
for
the middle
permits is
of
pretty high.
something and, now you have to meet this new requirement, you're not able to.
some people might be rushing to
Yeah.
get a permit now, but to meet the code adoption.
Right.
I don't know. But that'd be a good question for Lynn over the director of community development with Plata County. She would know the answer to that, knows exactly how many permits they issue. This is a concern of theirs because these are projects that they otherwise would not be issuing permits for. So the permit issuance is going to go up a
The
lot.
hiring is going to have to go up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really cool if the state of Colorado could create some sort of like self-serve portal.
Yeah.
Where homeowners could get ahead of it voluntarily so that they don't get caught up,
Yeah.
but.
No,
yeah,
you're
this-
right. One of the things that did not accompany the legislation was funding for implementation, which of course.
Of course.
And so it's just one of those unfunded things, but they have not developed a really, a communication strategy or plan yet. that's about to be developed by the code board, but there's no budget to go with that. So really, that's where we think we might be able to help the county a little bit and we being us in this room as well, being familiar with it. One thing you might do is raise awareness with your homeowner association and let them know, because there may be policies, architectural policies within your community that need to be modified to conform to code. So whoever's over that in your HOA, you might point in that direction. So they do a little research. The first step is to go read the code, and Ashley can provide that.
Has there been any discussion about working, I know you guys are working just in La Plata, but with the other neighboring counties and trying to get that together? I know there's different levels of available support among all of our counties, right? Some don't have
Yeah.
a building department. Has there been
haven't
any
so-
discussion of that?
We haven't so much, but I will say that, that's going to be part of this next step. Because the capacity for a county to take, so some counties don't even have a code, building code office. They don't issue permits.
Right.
They don't inspect.
Yeah.
And so,
Live in the county, you don't need a permit.
Right.
You can't get a permit.
and so the way the bill was written, I think that there is a provision in there that if a county is not set up to implement this, it can be done by the state, but you know how it is, things managed by a bigger organization further away, typically not very efficient or timely. So, yeah, it's a good question, because there's varying capacity across the state to implement this and absorb the resource costs that it's going to take to implement it. So, stay tuned. We'll probably read about it in the newspaper. And check it out online. You can see what that code entails.
Yeah, we'll make sure to post it with this stuff online.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Maybe just to